Okay, so Michael lifted up a really interesting point about um, there are some people, we all want clients that are committed, clients that are ready to do the work, is what I've heard a lot. And sometimes it's not that they don't have the get up and go, the commitment, the drive, the motivation to do it. That may be there, but there may be something in the way that is causing them to resist it, to not want to do it. Some risk they imagine, yeah. And so I just had this conversation with a friend of mine I was visiting, and she's had a real break with an old friend of hers. People would have considered them to be sort of besties in some way. They were best friends, and now they don't even talk anymore. And one of the friends has reached out, says she wants to build a bridge, but the other one has this feeling of, as we talked, I said, I get the sense that she doesn't even really understand why you don't want to talk. Despite you articulating it, it's sort of going over her head. And is that I bet you if she were to reach out and she were to say, I know that you don't trust me right now. You don't trust my intentions. You don't. If she could articulate the resistance, in other words, this would build trust. And she said, yeah, absolutely. Because the feeling she gets is that her friend just so profoundly doesn't understand her, doesn't get her at all, that it doesn't feel like a safe place, doesn't feel like it's a conversation. Because why would you want to get into a big conversation and process with somebody who just seems to have no idea where you're at and no openness to it. And it's a knowable thing for her friend. We'll just say that her friend, if she were to just reflect on the things that she'd gotten from this woman, she could know why there's the resistance there. And when you think about it with on racism, where white people are like, well, just tell me what it's like to be. It's like there are books, there are literal libraries on this topic. Could you just read one or something? Read a BuzzFeed article before you come to me and ask me to do this. Not that it's wrong to ask at all. It's just that it's understandable that it becomes an exhausting ordeal, or on a lighter level where somebody's like, hey, they ask you a question. It's like, oh, do you want me to Google that for you? Just that thing you could easily have found. Anyways, when we translate this into marketing, it's identical, because in marketing, there will be resistance that people have to working with us. And one of the things that dramatically reduces that resistance is them knowing that we get the resistance, that we understand why they're having a hard time committing. That alone takes so much of the risk out of it. Oh, you get it? You get how this is terrifying for me and why it's terrifying for me? Well, then I can relax a little bit because I know I'm in good hands. I know that you understand. So if we know there's resistance, to me, one of the most important next steps is to see if we can articulate that resistance in a way that they would read it and say, oh my God, that's me. I get it. It's so powerful when we're talking about reducing risk, and that's part of what is coming up here when there's resistance. And if you go to, if you search in the membership, if you search the word risk, like 3 levels of reducing risk or something like this, you'll find it. But also you can find it on my website, marketingforhippies.com/risk, if you don't want to go searching. But there are 3 ways to reduce risk, 3 levels of it, basically. The most important is just reputation. Of course, word of mouth. If people you trust say this person's good, that handles most of it. Second is education. And third is education around the point of view. And third is the kind of guarantees and all of this. But a kind of through line through those second 2, the education and the guarantees, implicit in the guarantees is you saying, I understand how scary this is. I understand the risk you take. And so here's what I'm going to do on my end. So it's sort of woven into that, and even how you might articulate it and frame it and why you're offering it in the first place. And thank you, Amber, for finding the link for that. But also, of course, in the education, it can show up. And it shows up heavily. I mean, this is headline material, because sometimes what happens, we say, well, what's island A and what's island B? Sometimes what we have to include in island A is, you're struggling with this problem and you really want this result, but there's this thing. You're on meds for your mental health stuff. You want to go off the meds, but you're terrified it's going to make you spin out and be a disaster. That's a real fear, of course. You want to start dating again. You want to get out there, but you're so scared of rejection. So you see what I'm saying? It gives you a kind of a key to this journey that sometimes has been missing, because we've acknowledged what they want. We've acknowledged, or the pain. Yeah, we've acknowledged the craving, but we haven't acknowledged the resistance in there. And that sometimes completely opens it up and has them see themselves, because otherwise it's like, oh, well, yeah, lots of people have this problem and want this result, but that's not me exactly, because I have this concern about it. In sales, they would typically call this your objections. And then in sales, of course, they try to get over the objections and try to overcome them and all that. But instead, we can just start with acknowledging. One other example of this was, so I started a project in 1999 called Youth Jams, bringing together leading young change makers from around the world. Somehow, 23 years later, it's still going. I ran it for 3 years and it's still going. And they did one in New York, I heard, called Healing Justice. And so I don't know any of these people involved. And of course, there's no aspersions being cast here, but it's just to illustrate the troubles. And there were 2 Black women there, fairly politically radical Black women from New York. And I get the sense it was mostly a white group. I'm not totally sure on the mix, but these 2 Black women said, we don't feel safe here. And the facilitator's response was, no, of course you're safe. This is a safe place. And they left, I think, the day after, something blew up and all this. The proper response, or a proper response to this, would be to say, you're right. You're totally, look at the society we're in, for the love of God. Of course you're not safe. And so we hear you. That's true. Amen. Sadly. And to invite the rest of the room, can you see that that they don't feel safe? Can we just acknowledge that and proceed accordingly? Not proceed like they're just relaxed and everything's groovy for them in this group, and that this is a group they just couldn't feel warmer and toastier about. Just the acknowledgement of the resistance to opening up. It's like, well, of course. Yeah. And if the facilitators had even named that in the beginning, I bet you that would have helped. Like, hey, there's a lot of us for a lot of reasons. We just don't feel safe in a group like this. And that's welcome too. That has this place too. We don't banish that or shun that. Yeah. So that's all I'll say about that. But thank you for bringing that, Michael, because it's this resistance piece is so overlooked, I think, in the niching, and often for our people, because otherwise they probably have fixed it. If they know what island A is and what island B is, it's like, yeah, go, just go. And this is something else Danny Inney said during the retreat, which I thought was so lucid, and it relates to this. Whenever you're stuck in life, there's really only 2 reasons that you're stuck. And this is useful to think about with your clients too. Because if they're stuck, there's only one of 2 reasons, let's say generalizing wildly. One, they don't know how to do something. Yeah. I don't know how to market in a way that doesn't feel gross. I don't know how to niche in a way that doesn't feel like I'm cutting off limbs of my body. I don't know how to approach women in a way that doesn't seem creepy. I don't know how to heal this disease without medications. Yeah, there's often a how-to. There's something they don't know how to do, and that's why they're coming to you. Because this happened to me when I was younger and trying to figure out dating. People are like, well, just be yourself. I was like, well, thanks so much. My mom gave me the same advice. She didn't charge me $50 or whatever, So it's often very practical. And if we can help them even articulate, what is this thing they're trying to know how to do? That's headline material itself. But the second reason we get stuck is we don't want to do it. Isn't that funny? When he said that, it just landed as so true. We actually don't want to do it. So in this conflict my friend's having, her friend has said, hey, let's meet and talk about it. But the reality is where she's feeling so torn up about it. And I just looked at her and say, you don't want to. Right now, given the conditions, given the kind of courting you're getting from her, or absence of it, you just don't want to do it. And so sometimes people just need permission around that to just not want it. But whenever we want something that we don't want, whenever there's that, what that's saying probably is there's multiple parts of us at play. And one part of us wants it and a bunch of other parts don't. In nonviolent communication language, we're scared there's certain needs that just won't be met if we go about it. So we're torn inside, it's conflicted, and we're not, to quote Vangelis Arian, we're not, full-hearted, open-hearted, clear-hearted, strong-hearted about it. We're divided inside. And so if you can articulate the different parts for your ideal client, you see how powerful that is. You say, look, part of you probably wants it for these reasons, but there's another big part of you that doesn't want it for all these reasons. And hey, well, amen, that makes sense. And what we're talking about here is an approach that can meet the needs of all those parts. Those parts of you that are scared about this don't have to be scared, because we're going to take care of that too. Those parts of you, they got a seat at the table too. They're not banished. You don't have to white knuckle through it, because everybody's going to get fed here. So good to notice with our clients with this Island A, where is it that they're stuck? Is it a how to, or is it a don't want to? And maybe probably a bit of both. And we can give language to that in such a way that their resistance is seen. There's a video I did called Articulating the Fog. That's somewhere in the membership. But somebody said, oh, my clients are in such a fog. And it was like, first thought, I think, if I'm remembering right, that I'm trying to help them get out of the fog. And I said, no. Don't try to help them get out of the fog first. First, articulate the fog. Give voice to the fog in such a way that they recognize where they are. That's Island A. You're lost in a fog. And it's kind of like this, isn't it? Being in a fog. And Amber, again, with the link. It's very profound. Because, there's the crass level of Island A and Island B. The crass level is, oh, you're in pain and you want to be out of pain. Oh, you're unhealthy, you want to be healthy. Okay, that's fine enough. That's good. That's a great starting place. But what about this level of the resistance and the fog and don't want to and don't know how to? All of it. Okay, so there you go. I just wanted to get that one in the can because it's something that just came up literally yesterday. Okay, I'm just going to stop recording.